All right, so for part 5, the biggest thing, the most points on the exam are going to be on the normal distribution. Because this is going to be the heart of everything that we do moving forward, or at least part 6, and a little tiny bit of part 7. So this normal distribution bit matters a bunch. So in terms of the normal distribution, you're going to see the 3 types of questions you saw on the worksheet from this week, from week 7? Is this 7 or is this 8? I think this is week 8. Sorry, my brain is fried. So normal distribution questions. There's going to be at least one direct question, probably more. There's going to be at least one inverse question, and then there's going to be one tricky inverse. So those are guaranteed to be on the exam. Each of them worth 5 or 6 points. So we're talking like 15, 16, maybe even 20 points worth here. Probably right around that. A quarter of the exam is going to be this normal distribution. So if you felt really good with week 8's worksheet, you're set, right? And again, think about things that you can put on your note card for this. So direct questions. This is when we're looking for a probability or a percent. And there's only 3 different possibilities: a left side, a right side, or a between question, right? And so the only thing you might want to have, if it's something you've struggled with, is what the different lower bounds and upper bounds are for your actual calculator shortcut, right? So for the left side, our lower bound is E99, and our upper bound, the upper bound is the actual cutoff. For the right side, our lower bound is the cutoff, and our upper bound is a positive E99. And then for the between, life is easy. You'll be able to just type in the 2 different values that we're between, right, for your upper bound and lower bound. So drawing the picture, though, remember, keeps us from making a lot of the silly mistakes that might happen. But you probably want to have on your calculator somewhere that this is normal CDF. And if you don't have... This baby's making strange noises. And if you don't have the wizard, maybe a reminder that normal CDF gets fed lower, upper, and then the mean and standard deviation. Inverse questions, these you're going to be given the probability, and we're going to be looking for a value. And again, 3 different possibilities. The probability is on the left, probability was given on the right, or you were given a middle probability, right? And for all of these questions, we're going to use inverse norm, which gets fed a left side probability, and then the mean and the standard deviation. And so for the left side, you're just going to use this as whatever you were given. For the right side, you'll have to subtract from 1 to figure out this side over here. And for the middle, well, you have to subtract it from 1, but then you have to divide by 2 because there's 2 different tails. And you might want to actually throw in some values there. I'll throw up a normal cheat sheet up in the part 5 section on Blackboard in case you want to see a little more breakdown of these things. And then the tricky inverse, this is probably the one that you most likely need some notes on for your note card. Step 1 for the tricky inverse is to find a z using inverse norm, the left side probability, and then using a mean of 0 and a standard deviation of 1, regardless of what they gave you. And remember, this is when we're going to be looking for sigma or mu. And then step 2, after you have your z-score, is to use x is equal to z times sigma plus mu, plugging in all of our different values to find your unknown piece, right? And doing a little bit of algebra. So you might want to just throw one worked example on your note card if this is something you struggled with. And then maybe a note to yourself. For inverse and tricky inverse, don't forget units, because that's just a simple way to lose a point or 2, is to forget your units on those 2. So that's the biggest thing from part 5, is that normal distribution question. I usually also like to throw like one multiple choice, sort of about understanding the normal, or how the table works, or how, just something on there to get a little bit more into that normal distribution, because like I said, it's really the key of part 5. Other stuff that you're going to see from part 5 on the test, the binomial, obviously, We spent a whole lot of time on it with that giant worksheet from part 7. Just know there's probably only going to be one binomial question. So you don't want to kill your note card with all the stuff from the binomial cheat sheet. And this is very similar to the sampling without replacement in that if you show me some work, if you told me that you use binom PDF or binom CDF, you'll at least get some of the points even if you did the wrong values or whatever it might be. So show me as much work as possible, as much of your reasoning as possible, so that way I can give you partial credit. The most struggle students have with binomial is just recognizing when to use it, but just realize if you have an N and a P, that's a hint that we're dealing with binomial. So there's going to be one probability question, which means that you'll use PDF or CDF. I don't know which. I usually like to have one about the assumption, sort of recognizing when we're dealing with a binomial distribution. So that was our bins, because we're going to have a lot of stuff that we have to check conditions on moving forward. So checking these conditions for binomials is sort of our first opportunity to see that. Other stuff from week, whatever that was, week 7, a discrete distribution. This is when we made the sweet tables, right? And there's two possibilities really for test questions on these. One is I could have you create a table, which is usually a sampling without replacement question. You can see last spring's exam with the avocado, where I have you come up with all the different values. The second option is to find the expected value or the standard deviation. In these particular situations, I would be giving you basically all the different probabilities. You'll kind of see a list of probabilities. It won't be given to you in a table, but instead it'll be like, oh, the probability of 2 defects is blah, blah, blah. Probability of 1 defect is blah, blah, blah. And you'll then be like, oh, she gave me all the different values and their probabilities. And remember, for calculator stuff, this is when we did the 1-var stats, where L1 was equal to the X values and L2 was equal to the probability of X. And then 2 more things. We have our continuous distributions. This is when we had our triangles or our rectangles with our uniform distribution, and this is all about recognizing that area under the curve was just what we were looking for probabilities, and being able to do some simple geometry calculations. And then the last thing is the one that I need to still make videos for, which is the normal approximation to the binomial, which is basically a direct normal question with 2 steps. Step 1, you're going to find the mean and the standard deviation for a binomial. And then step 2, you're going to use that mean and standard deviation in a normal CDF question. So you'll still have your lower, your upper, and then that mean and standard deviation you just found. So I'll post up those videos on that normal approximation to the binomial, but this is exactly what's coming from part 5. I really can't get any more exciting with this. The only other thing I think of is with that discrete distribution, I could also have you find probabilities by just like, oh, greater than or equal to 3 is 3, 4, adding those up. I don't know. It's pretty straightforward. Like I said, I know where some of us are freaking out, but the content is pretty straightforward. Go through those old exams, and you should feel pretty good about it afterwards.